ERP projects don't usually fail all at once. They fail gradually when motion starts to replace control. And it rarely looks reckless. It looks like reasonable decisions made under pressure. And each one seems to make sense on its own. On paper, the program is advancing, activities are getting checked off, and the plan seems to continue to be moving forwards. But underneath all of that motion, something's shifting. Governance is slowly losing its ability to say no. Progress is real, but really, it's no longer defensible. Here's the thing leaders recognize too late. They don't start asking whether to pull the plug because work has stopped. They ask because work continues to go, even after confidence is gone. UAT starts while integrations are still incomplete. Testing's going forward while end-to-end processes are still changing. And exception handling isn't defined, but phases are advancing anyways. Look, at some point, the advancement stops being driven by readiness, and it starts being driven by the calendar, or by contracts, or by external pressures. The phase gates are still there. They've just stopped functioning as control points. Entry and exit criteria become suggestions that can be ignored. Pulling the plug doesn't mean abandoning the ERP program. It means refusing to advance phases without being ready. Advancing without criteria doesn't buy you speed. What it's doing is it's deferring risk to later, to more expensive moments in the program. Continuing isn't neutral. It's a decision with consequences. At this point, this stops being a delivery conversation and becomes a capital at risk discussion. Every week of continued execution is consuming cash and leadership attention and organizational capacity. None of that's recoverable. It's all sunk. And leaders have to reframe their logic. Look, continuing does not equal progress. Continuing without control is actually increasing your economic exposure. Ultimately, ERP distress seldom comes from one bad call, one bad decision. It comes from partial readiness becoming normal in the program, integrations that are mostly done, data that's good enough, processes that seem to be close enough. And each exception on its own seems and feels manageable. Together, though, they quietly reset what the organization accepts as normal. Testing shifts away from business outcomes towards scripts and checkboxes. Defects get reclassified instead of resolved, and governance approves workarounds instead of forcing decisions. By the time, though, this is all visible, stopping feels impossible. Budget is confirmed, teams are tired, partners are embedded, the business has other priorities. This ultimately isn't a productivity problem. It's a readiness and an enforcement problem. Once partial readiness becomes the norm, control's already weakened. But by now, the board's confidence is usually shaken. And what matters next is narrative control. Boards don't lose confidence because the timelines move. They lose confidence when leaders can't clearly explain why decisions still make sense. Reframing from "we're behind" to "we're reasserting control" changes the basis of trust. But that becomes much harder if you've already made and broken multiple promises to fix the program. At this stage, reasserting control doesn't come from promising a new timeline. It comes from forcing clarity. That's where an independent, expedited surgical audit really matters, especially one whose findings go up to the board. At Pemmico, we use a structured ERP audit for one reason: to separate symptoms from causes and to force decisions that recovery actually demands. It's not a postmortem. The audit doesn't fix the program, but it triggers the decisions that do. Without that trigger, organizations drift. And drift is still a decision. At this point, leaders usually raise a real and pressing concern. Look, our teams are already overwhelmed. Won't this slow us down even more? The audit doesn't add work. It interrupts unproductive motion. It gives leadership a way to distinguish what's ready from what isn't and to allow them to act accordingly. Look, if the organization can't pause to reassess, it's already exposed. And the audit looks across the entire ERP lifecycle, but not to score the project, to determine whether control can be restored and how. At Pemmico, the audit covers 8 threads. For executives, we collapse those 8 threads into 4 outcome-driving areas. If you'd like a copy of our audit framework, click the link in the comments and you'll be able to download it. The first grouping is control and governance. Are roles clear? Are the accountabilities explicit? Do decision rights match risk? Do governance decisions actually change outcomes? Are phase gates, entry and exit criteria enforced? And does the delivery approach fit the program's complexity? When decisions don't stick, leadership's leverage disappears. The second one is business readiness. Are processes deliberately designed to support the strategy and operating model? Or are they still being negotiated? Have the process owners signed off? Is configuration aligned to those decisions? Has it been validated end to end? Are the stakeholders ready? Is training designed for performance, not for milestones? When the system moves faster than the business can decide, risk accumulates. Then we have data and technical readiness. Are data structures aligned to leadership decision-making needs? Is migration tested early and often? Integrations, custom objects and controls, are they built and tested? If these aren't firm by late stages, optimism is masking unresolved issues. And those issues will not fix themselves. They surface operationally, often at the worst possible moment, like month end. Transition and cutover risk. Is the system ready? Is the organization ready? Are hypercare and contingency plans real and actionable? When cutover plans compensate for upstream gaps, enterprise risk outweighs schedule pressure. When the audit surfaces underperformance, leaders need to be prepared for one outcome. It may show that certain people, internal, external, are underperforming in ways that compromise the program. And the decision becomes stark. Do you stick it out with those who have the history but aren't delivering? Do you supplement and hope it offsets the risk? Or do you transition critical roles who people don't have the history but may have the capabilities? Not easy decisions. A well-constructed audit lays out the options, their implications, and recommends how to move forward. But the audit isn't the recovery. It enables it. What follows is a corrective action plan. What stops, what resets, what proceeds, what risks should leadership accept? We break the audit into discrete threads so the recovery plan can be surgical. Not every issue gets tackled, not every option is good, but the leaders regain the ability to choose deliberately instead of drifting or getting pulled along for the ride. Look, to close, ERP programs don't collapse when systems break. They collapse when authority erodes and motion replaces control. Audit and recovery plans don't create miracles. They create a mechanism to make hard decisions when none of the options remaining are good. The goal isn't confidence, the goal is control. Pulling the plug isn't the hardest decision. Letting loss of control continue is.